Now for the news in detail. In the U.S., the daily deaths from coronavirus have dropped to 820 as the country's tally nears 90,000. The global COVID-19 death count has crossed 315,000 with over 4.7 million infections. More on that now in this report.
The curve of coronavirus deaths has seen a downward trend for the last couple of days in the hardest hit regions of the world. While the virus epicenter of the U.S. appears to record lesser deaths, the White House has pinned the blame on the Centers for Disease Control for its delayed response. Meanwhile, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo has applauded the work of healthcare providers.
Per capita, we are doing more than other countries, significantly more. Diagnostic tests by population, New York is 7.1. Italy is second, 4.9. Canada, USA, nationally is doing 3.3. We're double the national average. So thank you to the Department of Health team and everybody who's been working so hard to do that.
Italy and Spain are among a number of European countries that are set to further ease their coronavirus restrictions from today. Public transportation and most businesses will be free to reopen after more than 2 months of nationwide lockdown. But in Egypt, the government says it will halt public transport and impose strict restrictions from May 24th for 6 days during the Eid holidays.
Throughout this time, which is approximately a full 6 days, all commercial shops, malls, restaurants, and entertainment venues will be closed, as well as all beaches and public parks, in order to limit the spread of the virus in all ways possible.
South Korea has reported 15 new COVID-19 cases with signs that the cluster centered on Seoul clubbing district is slowing. China has reported 7 new infections, one of them in the northeastern province of Jilin, where a partial lockdown is in place.
Here in Pakistan, the death toll from the new coronavirus has jumped to 903 as the country recorded 30 new deaths in the last day. The health ministry said 1,947 more cases were reported, bringing the tally to 42,125. The health ministry said 11,922 patients of coronavirus have recovered so far. It said Punjab has recorded 15,346 infections, Sindh 16,377, and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa 6,061. 2,692 cases have been reported in Balochistan and 997 in the capital, Islamabad. Prime Minister Imran Khan, meanwhile, is launching the cash dispersal program for workers who've lost their jobs. The Prime Minister's office says over 3.4 million jobless applications have so far been received through the Asas Labour portal. Libya's internationally recognized government says 3 civilians have been killed in an attack by Khalifa Haftar's forces in Tripoli's Garibaldi town. This comes as government forces claim to have captured the key Al-WATIYA airbase from Haftar's forces after 6 years. They've also taken control of heavy weaponry left behind by the LNA. Al-WATIYA is seen as a key airbase, second only to Mitiga Airport. It was captured in 2014 by Khalifa Haftar, who used it as one of his military headquarters. Libya's army says it has captured the key Al-WATIYA airbase from Khalifa Haftar's LNA forces after 6 years. The victory was announced by the media office of the government-led Burkan al-Ghadab, or the Volcano of Rage operation. Commander Osama al-Juwaili says GNA forces have also taken control of the heavy weaponry left behind. The move came after the Libyan army destroyed the LNA's 3 Pantsir-type air defense systems. Al-WATIYA is seen as a key airbase, second only to Mitiga Airport. It was captured in 2014 by Khalifa Haftar, who used it as one of his military headquarters. The governor of Somalia's Mudug region has been killed along with 3 of his bodyguards in a suicide car bombing claimed by Al-Shabaab. Security official Musa Ahmed says more casualties are feared. In late March, the governor of Puntland was also killed under similar circumstances. Al-Shabaab, an Al-Qaeda affiliate, was driven out of Mogadishu in 2011 and lost most of its strongholds, but still controls vast swathes of the countryside. Its members have carried out numerous attacks in the capital and seek to overthrow the government in Mogadishu. In Sudan, 2 people have been shot dead by security forces in the capital Khartoum for violating the coronavirus curfew. In a statement, the army said a soldier manning a checkpoint in the Al-Daim neighborhood opened fire on 2 people on a rickshaw after they refused to stop. The statement said the soldier has been arrested and an investigation has been launched into the incident. The incident has triggered protests by hundreds of angry youth in the neighborhood. Locals say protesters set tires ablaze, chanting anti-army slogans, and called for bringing the killer to accountability. Sudan's health authorities have confirmed 105 deaths and more than 2,500 COVID-19 infections. In Afghanistan, 7 people have been killed in a suicide blast near the National Directorate of Security's Special Unit in Ghazni province. Medics said over 40 others have been wounded in that attack. Confirming the blast, the Interior Ministry said a religious center in Ghazni city was attacked. The spokesperson, Tariq Aryan, said details would be shared soon. Claiming responsibility, the Taliban spokesperson Zabiullah Mujahid said 56 soldiers were killed and 42 wounded in the blast. In a tweet, Zabiullah said the suicide bomber targeted the military base and barracks in the city. The Taliban say the recent political deal between President Ashraf Ghani and Abdullah Abdullah is only a repetition of past failures. Yesterday, Ghani and rival Abdullah signed a power-sharing agreement ending months of political impasse. Spokesperson Sohail Shaheen said all sides should focus on a real and sincere solution. Shaheen said the resolution lies in the implementation of the Doha Accord without creating further hurdles. He said the prisoners' release process should be completed and intra-Afghan negotiations should begin soon. Earlier, the U.S. envoy Zalmay Khalilzad said Washington welcomed the new power-sharing deal in Afghanistan. Khalilzad said the outline for this power-sharing deal has been in place for 10 weeks. He said that both leaders should not repeat mistakes in governance, as now is the time to resolve the conflict. Iran says the United States will soon be expelled from Iraq and Syria. In a video conference, Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei said Americans' actions led to them being abhorred by regional nations. He said Washington is a warmonger. It helps dictatorships, trains terrorists, and supports oppression unconditionally. The Iranian Supreme Leader said American society and its political system are not attractive for the global community today. He said the U.S. is hated because of the behavior of its current officials, including the President and Secretary of State. Last month, U.S. President Donald Trump said he had instructed the U.S. Navy to fire on any Iranian ships that harass it at sea. After Trump's statement, Revolutionary Guards head Major General Hossein Salami said Iran would destroy U.S. warships. A Jewish settler has been found guilty of racially motivated murder of a Palestinian family. An Israeli court in its verdict announced the settler carried out an arson attack, killing the couple and their baby in 2015. The court said the triple conviction of 25-year-old Amiram Ben Uliel carries a potential life prison sentence. Meanwhile, Ben Uliel claimed investigators forced him into making a false confession. Speaking to media, a lawyer for the convict said he would appeal the verdict in Israel's Supreme Court. Pakistan has summoned a senior Indian diplomat to register a strong protest over ceasefire violations along the line of control. The Foreign Office said Indian forces resorted to unprovoked firing yesterday, injuring civilians in the Khairatza sector. In a statement, spokesperson Aisha Farooqi said Indian forces have been targeting civilian-populated areas. She said such senseless acts are in clear violation of the 2003 ceasefire understanding and international humanitarian law. She urged India to allow the UN Military Observer Group to play its mandated role as per UN Security Council resolutions. The Pakistani spokesperson said India has so far committed 1,081 ceasefire violations in 2020. In India, Asif Iqbal Tanha, an anti-citizenship law protester, has been remanded into judicial custody till May 31st by a Delhi court. Delhi police arrested the 24-year-old Jamia Millia student on Sunday, accusing him of orchestrating violence in the city. Police said he is a key member of the Jamia Coordination Committee, which spearheaded protests against the controversial law. He's accused of instigating riots in Jamia Millia Islamia in December last year. They said Tanha is a close associate of Omar Khalid, Sharjeel Imam, and Safura, all of whom have been key members of anti-CAA protests. Last month, police booked all of these activists and students under stringent Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. Under that draconian law, the arrested can be jailed for up to 7 years. Most of the 83 people killed in nationwide unrest in opposition to the controversial citizenship law have been Muslims. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo warns China against threats to interfere with the work of U.S. journalists in Hong Kong. In a statement, Pompeo said any decision impinging on Hong Kong's autonomy can affect U.S. assessment of Hong Kong's status. Pompeo said these journalists are members of a free press and their valuable reporting informs Chinese citizens and the world. Earlier, Pompeo said the State Department was delaying a report to Congress assessing Hong Kong's autonomy under China. In recent months, Washington and Beijing have clashed over journalists working in each other's countries. In March, China expelled American journalists a month after the U.S. announced it would treat 5 Chinese state-run media entities as foreign embassies. In Canada, a pilot has died and another has been injured after an aerobatic Air Force jet crashed into a residential neighborhood in British Columbia. In a tweet, the Royal Canadian Air Force says the Snowbird jet crashed during a performance to salute public efforts against COVID-19. It said the injuries of the surviving member of the crash are not life-threatening. Witnesses said the pilot managed to eject from the plane with a parachute before the crash. The Snowbirds perform aerobatic stunts for the public similar to the Red Arrows in the UK and the US Blue Angels. Last year in October, a jet crashed into an uninhabited area before an air show in the US city of Atlanta after the pilot ejected. I'll be back after this break with plenty more news. Stay tuned. Now, at least 10 people have died after a boat capsized in the South Kivu province of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Officials said the ship was carrying 23 people, including 5 crew members, 13 of whom were rescued by police and local fishermen. Police said most of the victims were youth and children who hired the leisure boat for excursion. The fishermen were not very far when the boat capsized and rescued 10 people. Police said the survivors had been taken to hospital. Such accidents are common in the country, with boats often overloaded and lacking life vests. Survivors of the 1994 Rwandan genocide have demanded that its financier, Félicien Kabuga, should be tried in the African nation. Kabuga was arrested by French authorities in Paris on Saturday. In a statement, an umbrella organization of survivor associations, Ibuka, said Kabuga's arrest is an exciting information. It said Ibuka wishes that Kabuga can be brought to Rwanda for his trial and serve his sentence where he participated in those atrocities. The statement said the only good thing for survivors is to see those responsible for more than 1 million lives being held accountable. This as the UN's International Residual Mechanism for Criminal Tribunals said that Kabuga will be tried from its headquarters in Tanzania's city of Arusha. Representatives from 194 WHO member states are meeting virtually for the 73rd Annual World Health Assembly. Switzerland's President Simonetta Sommaruga opened the proceedings, pledging full support and cooperation with the WHO. Calling the Geneva-based health body indispensable, the Swiss president said the WHO needed more resources to help developing countries. She urged its 194 member states to act together in the crisis. Global leaders said they would call for an independent review into the international response to the pandemic at the meeting. The U.S. Air Force has successfully launched its Atlas V rocket, carrying an X-37B spaceplane for a secretive mission. The rocket was launched from Cape Canaveral a day after bad weather halted plans for a Saturday launch. The aircraft, also known as an orbital test vehicle, will deploy a satellite into orbit and also test power beaming technology. This is the plane's 6th mission in space. X-37B is a classified program and very little is known about it, but the Pentagon said it would test the effect of radiation on seeds and other materials. The launch was dedicated to frontline workers and those affected by the coronavirus pandemic. Japan has fallen into recession as the financial toll of the coronavirus continues to escalate. The country's economy shrank 3.5% in the first quarter of 2020, its biggest slump since 2015. The figure followed a 7.3% contraction during October to December, confirming a second consecutive quarter of decline. Japan introduced a state of emergency in April, severely affecting supply chains and businesses in the trade-reliant nation. Economists forecast that the economy will shrink 22% during April to June, which will mark its biggest decline on record. Japan announced a record over $1 trillion stimulus package to cushion its economy against the economic fallout of COVID-19. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell says the U.S. economy can collapse by 20 to 30% this quarter due to the COVID-19 lockdown. Powell said the U.S. economic recovery may stretch deep into next year, and a full comeback may depend on a COVID-19 vaccine. Powell said unemployment in the U.S. can peak at 20 to 25%, a level not seen since the 1930s. Powell said he is, though, confident that the country's economy will avoid another depression. Powell said the economy will need more government spending to support workers and businesses to allow for recovery. European stock markets have gained steam on the hopes of economic revival as many countries lift restrictions. Investor confidence is rising cautiously, despite fears of a second wave of coronavirus cases. Frankfurt's DAX has gained nearly 3%. The CAC 40 in Paris and London's FTSE 100 is trading over 2% higher. In Asia, Hong Kong's Hang Seng led the gains, closing over 0.5% higher. Seoul's Kospi and Japan's Nikkei 225 also gained nearly 0.5%, while the Shanghai Composite rose a fraction. Meanwhile, the international benchmark Brent crude oil price has gained over 5%. As Cyclone AMPHAN is expected to lash India's east coast this week, the government is evacuating thousands from the state of Odisha and has halted its port operations. Officials said this natural calamity is piling pressure on emergency services already grappling with the coronavirus pandemic. They said AMPHAN has intensified into an extremely severe storm and will unleash heavy rains with high-velocity winds in Odisha. The National Disaster Response Force has enhanced its strength to a total of 37 teams to combat the cyclone as well as the pandemic. The force said it is fully geared with all equipment and paraphernalia to face the developing situation. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is set to hold a meeting in New Delhi, the capital, to plan how to mitigate damage and injuries. Time now to find out what the weather is like around the world. Now, for the latest updates on these and other stories, you can follow us on our social media at Indus.news. Thanks for watching.